Overnight, a family home in Sefner simply vanished, swallowed by a 30-foot-wide sinkhole that opened beneath a sleeping man's bedroom. That collapse was not an outlier. Florida now records over 15,000 verified sinkholes, with new voids accelerating as groundwater pumping, rising seas, and chemical weathering silently erase solid ground. Insurance claims are surging, foundations are failing, and entire neighborhoods face an uncertain future. This investigation exposes the quiet engineering crisis beneath Florida's beaches, tracing how the cumulative collapse of ancient limestone is threatening structures, families, and the security of America's most developed coastline. If the ground beneath your feet is dissolving, can anything you build truly last? At 11 p.m. in Sefner, Florida, the ground beneath a single-story home gave way with no warning. The collapse was silent and total. A 37-year-old man, Jeffrey Bush, was asleep in his bedroom when the floor disappeared beneath him, plunging him into a void more than 20 feet deep. His brother Jeremy heard the crash and the screams, reaching the edge of the hole within seconds. He tried to pull Jeffrey out, but the ground kept crumbling. Emergency crews worked through the night, deploying cameras and listening devices. But the cavity had already swallowed everything. Not even the body could be recovered. The house was condemned and demolished within days. 2 neighboring properties were cleared as well. The site remains fenced off, a permanent reminder that the ground here is neither solid nor safe. This was not a freak occurrence. In the last 2 decades, Florida has verified over 15,000 sinkholes, with the majority clustered in Pasco, Hernando, and Hillsborough counties. Central and West Central Florida now report the highest density of incidents anywhere in the United States. In Hernando County alone, more than 9,000 sinkholes have been documented since 2000, erasing $173 million in property value between 2005 and 2012. Statewide, insurance claims for sinkhole damage once averaged $500 to $600 per month, costing carriers over $500 million annually, 10 times what they collected in premiums. After 2011, private insurers slashed coverage, leaving citizens' property insurance as the last resort for many homeowners. In high-risk areas, premiums now exceed $2,000 per year, and homes with unrepaired sinkholes can lose up to 65% of their value overnight. Dr. Carla Mendez, a geotechnical engineer who has studied the Sefner collapse, notes that the dimensions of these voids, often 30 feet across, 20 or more feet deep, are not unusual for Florida's karst terrain. The real anomaly, she says, is how quickly the number of incidents is rising. As she puts it, "We are seeing a new baseline. The ground is changing faster than our maps or our models can keep up." If a single bedroom can vanish in seconds, what does that mean for the rest of the state's infrastructure, its roads, bridges, and high-rise towers? Beneath Florida, a limestone platform stretches as deep as 5 kilometers, built from the compacted remains of ancient sea life. This rock isn't a solid slab. It's full of holes and channels, resembling Swiss cheese more than concrete. The Upper Floridan Aquifer, which supplies much of central and west central Florida, is especially porous, with up to half its volume made up of empty space. In some places, water flows through at rates as high as 1,000 millidarcies, moving easily through the stone's natural plumbing. Rainwater, carrying dissolved carbon dioxide, becomes slightly acidic as it seeps into the ground. When this water meets limestone, a chemical reaction begins. Carbonic acid eats away at the calcium carbonate, slowly dissolving the rock. Over centuries, this process carves out vast underground chambers and twisting tunnels. Studies show that Florida limestone dissolves at about 0.3 millimeters per year, roughly 1.2 inches every 1,000 years. In active karst zones, the pace can be even faster. The result is a landscape where the ground is always changing. the rock beneath homes and roads quietly eroding away. Modern pressures are speeding up this natural process. Groundwater pumping for farms and cities has dropped the water table in some areas by as much as 1.8 feet in just 10 years. Without the support of water, the ceilings of underground voids become unstable. Even a small drop can trigger collapse, opening sinkholes at the surface. Meanwhile, sea levels along Florida's coast are rising by more than 1.3 millimeters per year, outpacing the global average. As saltwater pushes inland, it reacts even more aggressively with limestone, increasing dissolution rates by up to 50%. Dr. Mendes's diagrams reveal a landscape riddled with voids, where each year of pumping and every inch of rising sea adds new stress. The Swiss cheese comparison isn't just a metaphor. The holes are real, and they're growing. Each time a sinkhole opens, the consequences run deeper than lost homes or shattered roads. The collapse of Florida's limestone doesn't just remove solid ground. It exposes ancient organic layers that have lain undisturbed for millions of years. These pockets, trapped within the rock, contain concentrated methane and tar-like residues, remnants of prehistoric swamps and marine life. When a void breaches the surface, laboratory flux measurements taken in Pasco and Hernando counties show methane releases spiking to 0.04 kilograms per square meter per day. That's more than 10 times the background rate for undisturbed coastal soils. Core samples from recent collapse sites reveal organic carbon levels as high as 3%, enough to fuel rapid microbial activity and chemical changes in surrounding groundwater. The byproducts don't stay below ground. Sediment surges follow major sinkhole events, with coastal monitoring stations recording up to a 12% increase in suspended particles after collapses near the shoreline. This influx clouds nearshore waters, smothering seagrass beds and coral patches already stressed by rising temperatures. For sea turtles, the impact is immediate. In areas where sediment loads spike after a collapse, nest success rates drop from 78 to 64% in a single season. Hatchlings struggle to reach the ocean through altered sand profiles, while eggs are suffocated by compacted, contaminated sediment. Dolphin and manatee populations, already threatened by boat strikes and algal blooms, face new hazards as water chemistry shifts and prey species decline. These ecological effects rarely make headlines, but the data is clear. Every sinkhole is a chemical event as well as a structural one. The ground's collapse releases not just earth and stone, but also a cascade of hidden hazards, methane, organic waste, and sediment that ripple through Florida's fragile coastal ecosystems long after the initial shock has faded. Raul Ortega keeps a spreadsheet on his kitchen table. Each row tracks another home in his neighborhood, now flagged as uninsurable or facing a premium hike. In 2005, statewide sinkhole claims totaled $85 million. By 2010, that number had tripled to $274 million. The pattern is clear. As the ground grows less stable, the cost to insure it rises even faster. Ortega's own policy used to include comprehensive sinkhole coverage by default. After Senate Bill 408 passed in 2011, that changed. Now, most policies only cover catastrophic collapse, meaning the house must be condemned, not just damaged, before a payout. Only 12% of homeowners in high-risk counties still carry full sinkhole riders. For the rest, a crack in the foundation or a sagging floor is a personal financial crisis. Ortega's neighbor lost his home's value overnight when a small depression appeared in the yard. The bank refused to renew the mortgage, and buyers vanished. Citizens Property Insurance, the state-backed carrier of last resort, now shoulders the bulk of the risk. Its surplus has dropped by $1.1 billion since 2015, eroded by mounting claims and reinsurance costs. Private insurers have retreated, unwilling to write policies in areas where the ground itself is unpredictable. Ortega describes the new reality. For many families, the question is not if a sinkhole will affect them, but whether they can afford to stay if it does. When insurance fails, the burden shifts to homeowners, local governments, and ultimately, taxpayers. The numbers on Ortega's spreadsheet are not just statistics. They are warnings that the ground beneath Florida's economy is shifting. A 40 by 25-foot sinkhole opened beneath Road 88 in Pasco County, swallowing 2 travel lanes and forcing a 3-day shutdown. Florida Department of Transportation engineers arrived within hours, deploying ground-penetrating radar to map the extent of the void. The initial survey revealed not just one cavity, but 132 separate subsurface anomalies within a half-mile stretch. Emergency grouting stabilized the immediate collapse, but the repair bill reached $95 million, nearly triple the original estimate. Crews worked around the clock, pouring concrete and injecting chemical grout into every detected void. Even so, only 12% of the affected segment could be reopened to full traffic within the first week. This is not an isolated case. Across the state, hidden voids beneath highways and bridges have forced a wave of emergency repairs. FDOT's annual budget for sinkhole mitigation has more than doubled in the past decade. In one coastal county, engineers ordered an additional $18 million in deep pilings for a bridge after radar scans revealed a honeycomb of empty space beneath the planned footings. Standard practice now requires radar surveys before any new road or bridge construction in karst-prone areas. But even the best technology cannot predict every collapse. Grouting and pilings provide temporary support, yet the underlying limestone continues to dissolve. Each new sinkhole exposes the limits of conventional engineering. The cost spiral is relentless. As voids multiply, so do the demands on public works budgets and emergency response teams. The ground beneath Florida's infrastructure is not just unstable, it is actively changing, faster than repair crews or budgets can keep pace. At 1:22 a.m. on June 24, 2021, Champlain Towers South collapsed in Surfside, killing 98 people in seconds. The exposed wreckage, broken concrete, twisted rebar, and a foundation laid bare, forced a reckoning with more than just flawed design. Investigators found chronic concrete decay and water infiltration, but beneath it all lay ancient limestone, porous and dissolving, the same bedrock that underpins much of Florida's coast. Core samples after the disaster showed no classic sinkhole, but salt water had intruded, corroding the steel-concrete bond. Professor Eli Turner of the University of Florida has spent years tracking the micro-tremors that ripple through this limestone. He measures the rock dissolving at 0.02 millimeters per year when exposed to salt water and acid rain. Over decades, this creates hidden voids, sometimes up to 12 meters wide, beneath high rises and homes. The real danger, Turner explains, is not just the slow loss, but the unpredictable spread of these cavities, sometimes leaving only a fragile shell beneath massive buildings. Turner's UFSES network of seismic sensors lines the most vulnerable stretches of coast. Their data reveal that microseismic events, often undetectable at the surface, can precede collapses by hours or days. In controlled tests, the network detects cavity growth with 70% accuracy, but real-world prediction is fraught with false alarms and short warning times. Still, the hope of early detection is fueling rapid expansion of these networks, especially near high-rise clusters. Since the mid-20th century, Miami Beach's sea level has risen 1.1 feet, accelerating corrosion and dissolution. As voids widen and support erodes, the question is not if the ground will move, but when, and whether anyone will notice in time. Florida's limestone is not an isolated anomaly. The same porous, dissolving rock stretches northward in a nearly unbroken chain for 1,200 miles, forming the backbone of the Atlantic coastal plain. Geological surveys confirm that the Floridan aquifer and its underlying karst formations extend through southern Georgia, across South Carolina, and into the lowlands of North Carolina and New Jersey. In these regions, the limestone is equally susceptible to chemical weathering and groundwater-driven collapse. Recent data from the U.S. Geological Survey and state agencies show over 4,200 documented sinkholes outside Florida along this corridor, with the number of mapped voids growing by 30% in just the past 2 decades. Risk indices compiled by regional experts rate several counties in coastal Georgia and South Carolina at 0.68 on a scale where 1.0 indicates maximum hazard, a figure that rivals Central Florida's most unstable zones. Dr. Alan Kim, a hydrogeologist specializing in southeastern karst, describes the Atlantic Belt as a continuous zone of vulnerability. He points to cross-state groundwater flow models showing that changes in Florida's aquifer levels can trigger pressure shifts as far north as Savannah and Charleston. The evidence is clear. Florida's sinkhole crisis is only the most visible edge of a much larger interconnected problem. The same geologic forces threaten suburbs, highways, and coastal infrastructure up the entire eastern seaboard. The question facing engineers and policymakers is no longer where the next collapse will occur, but how far and how fast these voids will spread as conditions continue to change. Florida's real estate market stands on ground valued at $1.9 trillion, with coastal tourism alone generating $108 billion each year. Yet the foundation beneath these assets is eroding faster than the balance sheets can adjust. Since 2011, private insurers have withdrawn from large parts of the state, citing unsustainable losses as sinkhole claims outpace premiums by a factor of 10. Lloyd's of London, once the backstop for Florida catastrophe risk, has raised reinsurance premiums by 48% for high-exposure zones. The state's own Citizens Property Insurance, now the largest underwriter, has seen its surplus shrink by $1.1 billion since 2015, with $1.3 billion allocated to mitigation and emergency payouts in just the last 3 years. Legislative sessions in Tallahassee have grown contentious as lawmakers debate how to distribute risk. Some propose shifting more cost to homeowners through higher deductibles or limiting payouts to catastrophic collapse only. Others push for state-funded stabilization programs, warning that a wave of uninsurable properties could trigger a broader economic crisis. The stakes are clear. A single year of widespread sinkhole activity could erase $12 billion in taxable property value, straining local budgets and threatening cuts to schools, emergency services, and infrastructure maintenance. Federal relief has not filled the gap. FEMA's criteria for disaster aid exclude most gradual ground loss, and catastrophic coverage is often denied unless homes are condemned outright. As a result, local governments are left to cover the shortfall, raising property taxes or deferring repairs. The numbers are stark, but the policy gridlock is even more so. As one state senator put it during a budget hearing, "We're trying to insure the uninsurable, and every year the ground gives us less to stand on." Ground-penetrating radar now identifies subsurface voids with 92% accuracy, yet even the most advanced surveys cannot guarantee safety beneath every highway or high-rise. Grouting fills about 68% of detected cavities, but the underlying limestone continues to dissolve. Managed retreat, abandoning exposed properties, has already saved an estimated $450 million in projected losses, but this approach is politically fraught and logistically complex. Deep pilings add only a 12% gain in structural stability before diminishing returns set in. Lieutenant Dan Whitaker, who oversees risk assessments for critical military and nuclear sites, points to Turkey Point Nuclear Generating Station south of Miami. Since 1972, the ground there has subsided by nearly a foot, 0.9 feet, measured at the reactor site, while saltwater has crept steadily inland. The Savannah River Corridor, home to major ports and naval installations, now registers over 1,800 mapped voids in the limestone beneath its infrastructure. USGS projections show a 30% increase in sinkhole frequency by 2050 along the entire Atlantic coastal plain. Asset monitoring has become a permanent operation. At Turkey Point, seismic arrays and automated radar sweep for cavity growth, but no system can provide absolute warning. Whitaker's testimony before Congress is blunt. We can map and patch, but we cannot outpace the dissolution. The ground is changing faster than our tools. If the bedrock beneath nuclear plants and naval bases is dissolving, what are the true national security implications? How many critical assets can be protected, and for how long? We now face a coastline where the bedrock itself can no longer be taken for granted. As sea levels rise and aquifers drain, the stability of billions in property and vital infrastructure hangs on geology in rapid flux. The question isn't if the voids beneath us will grow, but how soon we'll have to rethink what solid ground really means. What would you stake on the earth beneath your feet?